Morning everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to make these really cool little hanging rainbows. It's a great activity for the family to get involved with. It's a bit time consuming, so you may want to kind of do it in stages over a few days or work together on it as well. This little one, you can see, it's just got 3 colours, but obviously you can make it much bigger by doing, 5, 7, however big you want it to be. So what you need to make this is you need some thick string, like this stuff here, some scissors, some needle and thread, some different colour wools, and it's completely up to you what colours you want to do. You don't have to do the traditional rainbow colours, you can kind of use what you want to use. And then if you've got them and you can get hold of them, some little jump rings and some pliers, but you don't need these are just extras. So let's talk you through how to make them. So I'm going to make quite a small one for my demonstration, just to show you how it's done. So you're going to start with your thick string. If you can't get hold of this, you should be able to order it online from Amazon or eBay. You could always make your own by kind of plaiting or twisting together sort of plain wool. So don't worry if you can't get this, you can improvise and use something else. But seeing I've got it, that's what I'm going to use. So you want to bend the string into place to make your first arch. And this is going to be the smallest arch, which is kind of in the middle here. And then cut that off. I'm using big scissors for this just because it's a bit firmer, so if you're a young person doing this, you might want to ask help from an adult, or yeah, just sort of take your time with a smaller pair of scissors. So once you've got the first one, you can then go over the top of it and work out how big your next one's got to be. I'd recommend curving it round so you can kind of see how long it is. And you can trim these afterwards, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but when you roughly know where it is, I put my thumb there as a bit of a guide, like so, and then cut that off. And as I said, it doesn't have to be too precise, so don't panic if they're a little bit out, you can trim them afterwards. And then I'm just going to do a 3 one, like I've done in my example. So exactly the same again. Bend it round and then cut it off. And now you've got your 3 lengths, and if you straighten them out, you'll see they get slowly bigger as they kind of go up. And that's all we need to do to start off with. The next thing is you're going to choose the colours of the wool. So I'm going to start with this nice light blue colour. Again, I think most people have probably got some wool lying around at home. If not, again, you can order it online. I'll pop some links up this time of some online suggestions. So what you want to do, so I'm going to start with the smallest one. We're going to leave a little bit of the string at the bottom left bare, which means you can kind of fray it afterwards to give this nice sort of fringing effect at the bottom. So I'm going to get a bit of wool. You can cut a bit off, or you can just use it off of the main sort of wheel of wool, and you're going to tie it on. Let's move that up a little bit. So tie it on, leaving a bit of a gap at the bottom, which is where your frayed edges are going to be. And I've just done sort of 3 knots just to make sure it's nice and secure. This bit of wool I'm then going to enclose and kind of put up the length of the string, and then you're going to start binding it. And what I like to do is I bind under the knot to start off with, and then go up and over it and keep on going. And then you're going to just keep doing this the whole way. Again, I'm going to do mine a little bit quickly, just for demonstration purposes, but really take your time. You know, you can, if you want to, go all the way over and then go back if you want it thicker, but try and get it nice and even so you can't see the string underneath. Okay, and then you can see you can just lose that bit of string, the left off bit, underneath, and keep going. Now what you want to make sure is that the length on the end is the same on both sides. So I've not got quite enough string on this one, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to tie it in a knot, So what I did to do a knot, I kind of looped it round, but left a little gap there, and then poked it through the gap and tightened it up. And then what I can do is just snip off that excess bit, get a bit more string or wool, and sort of start again. So we're going to do this as if we started from the beginning. So put a little knot on there. Do 3 knots to make sure it's nice and secure. And then what I might do is just cut off most of that length. And then we're just going to carry on as normal. And don't worry if you get a few bumps and lumps in it. It doesn't really matter. When it's all stitched together, you're not really going to see it. So don't panic about that. And don't forget to keep just bending it round to check that it's going to sort of end up with the same amount of kind of frayed edge on the bottom of each one. So that looks about right. So when I'm at the end, as I did before, we're just going to knot this off, and because it's the end, I'm just going to do it a few more times to make sure it's really nice and secure. We don't want it unravelling. Ooh. And just tie it on however you want to tie it, so you know it's really nice and secure. It is a little fiddly, especially these small ones, so do be patient with it. Okay, once it's all knotted off and you're quite happy that it's all secure, just snip the excess wool off and they can go in the bin. Turn it over so all your knots are on the back and you've got your first loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to go for the next one, which I can see from the length is this one here. And that one is going to be exactly the same, and it's going to go over the top. So for this one I'm going to use red. So this time I'm going to make sure I've got a bit more wool to start with so I don't have to knot it off halfway through. So what you want to make sure is that where you start the second one matches up with where you started the first one. So these are in line. So it's roughly about there, I can see. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can kind of get this a little bit more precise at this stage, it helps it at the end look a little bit more sort of even. And what you can do is you can check it. So yeah, that's just above it. So by the time I've kind of done a couple of wraps below the knot, that should be perfect. So I'm just going to knot this a couple more times to make sure it's nice and secure. Cut off some of that excess, but the extra bit, like I did before, I'm going to wrap up the main bit of string. So we're going to go under the knot a couple of times and then come back up and over it and trap that in. And we're going to go all the way along. And you can see when you get going, it is quite quick. And if you were doing this as a family, you could all be doing a different colour at the same time, which would make it a bit quicker. So again, we're going to pop it round. So I've got to go a little bit more, you can see. That looks about right. Trim the excess off so I've not got loads to knot up. Knot that on. And do one final knot. You can see it likes to jiggle round and be nice and tricky on me. Okay, so that's really nice and secure. So trim off the excess. That's number 2. And then we're just going to do exactly the same again with the third one. I'm going to use this green kind of aqua colour for the last one. Again, I'm going to make sure I've got enough wool to go all the way around. And like I said, this is a great activity. You don't have to do it all in one day. You can do a little bit when you get a bit bored or you've had enough, come back to it the next day. Don't feel you've got to do it all in one hit. Okay, so I'm just going to line that up on the outside. So I can probably come down about a few more on this one, 4 bits lower maybe. And then back up and over. Just keep wrapping all the way around till you get to the end. And if you get little gaps like this, you can kind of squish the wool back up to cover it, or you can go back over it again. It's just because I'm rushing mine a little bit. More. And you can see there again, I was just checking it up against the original one to check that I've got to the end. And then we're going to knot it up. Okay, and then we've got our 3 bits. And like I said, I'm going to stick with 3 for this one, but you can do as many as you want. You could do the whole colours of the rainbow, you could do 5, you can make them really big as well. Obviously I'm making mine quite small. But don't let that stop you. You could go really, really big. So now we've got our 3 different bound bits of string. So now what we're going to do is we now need to kind of stitch them together. And this is a bit that's probably a little bit more fiddly. So this is when, if you are a young person trying this, you might want to grab an adult to give you a hand. And what we do is we stitch it on the back. You probably can't, only you can just about see here. You can see I've used invisible thread and I've just caught the back of them together. So that's what we're going to do now. You can, if you've got them, which is what I did for mine, clamp them together using sort of G-clamps. But I realise that's not something that most people have, so I'm going to try and do this demonstration without it. I'm going to use invisible thread. But if you don't have that, you can just use normal cotton. It's going to be on the back, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to get a bit of invisible thread and my needle, thread my needle, and then what we're going to do, so holding them quite tightly together, I'm going to kind of catch underneath the thread of one and underneath the thread of the other one, pull it through, and then to start off with I need to knot this, because obviously if I keep pulling it will just come undone. Like I said, this bit is the fiddly bit, so if you find yourself getting a bit stressed, either go ask someone for some help or sort of come back to it. Doesn't help that my invisible thread's really curled up, so it's curling back on itself. So once I've tied that knot a few times, I'm going to snip off the excess that way and re-thread my needle because that fell off. Okay, so lay them roughly in position, and then you're going to just keep doing what I did to start off with, getting kind of catching underneath 2 layers of the different colour wool. and pulling it through. Now obviously the more stitches you do, the more secure it's going to be. And just make sure, you can see there my thread's kind of gone around the back. Make sure it stays all on one side. So that means all your stitching will stay on the back and will be invisible from the front. Okay, so I'm gonna do quite big stitches on mine just because I want to show you just quickly how to do it. But as I said, the more you do, the more secure and the tighter it will be. And just keep bending it round to keep it in that shape. That's quite a good position. I've got it in there actually bent sort of round my finger. Oh, I've just snapped my needle, that was clever. Let me go see if I can find another needle quickly. No, there we go, there's one there. Pop that out of the way. This eye's a bit smaller on this one, so there we go. Okay. You can get curved needles, which makes this a little bit easier, but again, it's not something that everybody's likely to have at home, so I'm just showing you it with a straight needle. And you can see it's working fine. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's working. And you can see if you try and go too deep, you'll hit the string that's on the inside, and it gets a bit tough. So you just want to kind of pick up the top threads. And a couple more, and then we've gone the whole way around. And one more right at the bottom. Oh, that's a bit stiff. That's because I've gone a bit too deep. And then pull that out, and then you just need to knot it up at the end. So to knot it up, what I do, I go back through quite close to where the needle is, pull the needle out, and then I've made like a hole. Try and get my finger in there to show you. I've made a hole, go back through that hole a couple of times with your needle. There we go. So you can see I've looped through the hole, and I'm just going to pull that, and by pulling it tight, that creates a knot. And now you can see that that's been stitched all the way on the back there. So I'm just going to cut off that excess, and from the front, just my little knots there, I can snip them off. I've got my first 2 layers. So now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat the process with the largest one. So I need a bit more thread. Pull that out. Snip some of that off. And we're going to do exactly the same again. So do make sure you are, which is the better side, that's probably the better side. So kind of bend it round till it's in the position. And then this time you're obviously going to go to the middle one, to the outside. Pull through. And then let's tie those first ones up. This probably will be a bit easier with normal thread actually, because the invisible thread's quite plasticky, So it kind of stays in that kind of twisty spiral shape, whereas normal thread would sit a bit flatter. Okay, so we've got our first one in place. Across the needle. Okay, and then you can carry on. Exactly how you did it before, catching underneath the wool on both bits and pulling them up and through. Just make sure your thread's always on the back. You can see that one was trying to get caught around the ends. As that's that one again. Keep bending it round in shape. It's a really good way of holding it actually. You can see I'm kind of holding it wrapped around my fingers. That's working really well to kind of keep it in that rainbow shape. I told you this was the fiddly bit, I wasn't lying. And don't worry if the stitching's not very neat on the back, you're not going to see it. That's going to be the bit that's to the wall. I mean, obviously the more you do, the neater you'll get. You can see on my one, you can kind of hardly see it. So if it does spin around, it doesn't really matter. But if it's your first attempt making one of these, don't be too hard on yourself. You know, you've made something. That's the main thing. And like I said, the more you do, you'll find the neater they get as well. And just the more confident and quicker you get as well. Okay, nearly there. Okay, that'll do. So let's pull that through and then knot that last one up. So again, pulling it all the way through till I've got left a little loop, which you can just about see there. It's not the, there you go. Go through the loop a couple of times with my thread. So that's once, that's twice. And then by pulling that now tight, that creates a knot on the back. And snip it off. So let's get those out of the way. And then we flip it over and we've got our little rainbow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim off those little fluffy bits on the inside there. That was just where it ends. And we've got our rainbow, which looks great. So you notice on my one I've got little frayed edges, and this is something I forgot to mention earlier. You can just unravel it with your hands, but you can also use a comb and kind of comb them out as well. Here. Do use an old comb in case it breaks the bristle, the teeth of the comb. But I think the frayed edges look really cute, so I do think it's a nice thing to do. If you don't have a comb, you can use your needle as well. Just kind of poke it in and pull them down. Takes a bit longer because you're kind of undoing one at a time. In fact, I think that bit's got a bit of tape on there. That's why that one's not coming out. So that's obviously the end of the string. Let's get that bit off. That should come out much easier now. There we go. Upside down again. I'll just do this quite quickly, but you can take more time. You can bend it back into shape. And then what you can do at this stage, you might find your tassels are all a bit uneven now. As I said earlier, this is a bit where you can give them a trim, give it a bit of a haircut. So I'm going to hold it back together. Here's my big scissors for this. There you go. Trim off the excess. So do that. So it's looking really good. So the last thing you need to do is you need to have something to hang it from. You can, if you want to, just use cotton and a needle and just do a tiny little stitch, catch underneath a bit of the wool at the top and hang it. But if you've got them, you can use a tiny little jump ring or split ring. You'll need a little pair of pliers for this. So you just want to catch the jump ring on one side and use your thumb to just sort of hinge it open, like that. Go to the top and just catch it under. Well, that wasn't very in the middle, was it? Let's try that again. A little bit fiddly again. Catch it under a bit of the wool at the top and then use your finger to kind of close that loop back up. And then you can just get a bit of wool. Let's use this dark blue this time if I can find an end. There you go. So I chose to use a different colour through the top. Poke it through. Make a little loop and then tie that in a knot at the top. Snip off the excess. And voila! You've got a really cute little rainbow. So you can see it next to my original one that I did. They look really cute. You can use these for sort of decoration, hanging on doors, hanging in the windows. You could make loads of them and make like a mobile. It's completely up to you. But a really nice little craft activity for you guys to try at home. So I hope you enjoy it. And don't forget, if you have a go and you make one yourself, please do tag us in it because we'd love to see what you make. Okay guys, take care. Bye.